Did you know that your subconscious mind already has a way of taking a goal, a dream, a plan, and then projecting it out into the future in such a way where you naturally reorganize your behavior to make the achievement of that goal effortless? This is one thing that I check with not only the business owners that I coach to make sure their revenue targets are aligned with their subconscious behavior, but anytime I'm doing goal achievement work with clients. So there's a extremely popular metaphor for the unconscious, in particular, how the unconscious can lock in on a particular goal and reorient your own behavior, reevaluate your own behavior, and start to move towards that goal effortlessly. And that's the one of the GPS, right? That when we have a GPS system, whether you're using Waze or Google Maps, or even if you look at some of the more complicated navigation systems that we have in airplanes or space flight, for example, once the target is programmed in, then the vehicle reevaluates itself on the way to that target. Now, the more effective the map is, the more routes you can look at. You can look at different traffic, different time frames, whether you want to take highways, etc. But what happens is once that destination is programmed in, the machine calculates the different routes to get there, and then based on what's happening in the world, right, if there's traffic, for example, or if you're flying cross-continental across the country, right, if there's various degrees of wind, the GPS can calculate when you begin to get off target and then realign you over and over again so that you begin to move more quickly towards your goal. And we work, our subconscious minds work precisely the same way. Now, you're already doing this, right? Whenever you go on vacation, for example, right, you project out this idea that you want to go on a trip. Like right now, I'm contemplating going to Costa Rica. And as I project that goal out, I know I'm going probably in March or April. That there are several things based on where I am currently that have to happen in order for me to go. Right? I have to check in with the COVID guidelines. I'm gonna have to make sure my passport is up to date. Are there immunizations that I have to take? What types of clothes? What's the weather gonna be like? Right? Whenever you plan a trip, you start to work backwards pretty automatically, and you become consciously aware of the things that need to happen in order for you to get there, right? If you go to lunch, if you're thinking, you feel you're hungry, and you go, I want lunch, and you project out this idea of what you want to eat, then you start to automatically think, okay, am I gonna take out the phone and get DoorDash? Am I gonna run to the store, whatever, am I gonna make something? And then your unconscious starts to lay out the steps that you need, right? Let's say you wanna make something, you go into your refrigerator, you find out you don't have eggs. Oh, well, I can't go this route, but there are other ways for you to meet the objective of getting lunch, and then you replan. Amazing business leaders. So when you think about Steve Jobs, when you think about Elon Musk, anybody who's been successful in business has taken that natural ability and is aligning their business targets with that same thing. That there's a great book by Sean Carson called The Reality Distortion Field, where he modeled, in a sense, Steve Jobs' ability not only to project a goal into the future with such certainty that they did things that were previously thought of as being impossible in the industry.
Much broader, once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing.
Right, when you think of our greatest innovators, when you think of the rock stars across industry, whether it's Michael Jordan, Kobe, Muhammad Ali, if it's one of these business titans, they're taking something they want, even if other people don't think it's possible, and they project it out into the future with such certainty that the unconscious begins to find a way to make it happen. So if you take an NLP practitioner, depending where you take it, right? This is an exercise that came from timeline therapy. So if your practitioner is either a Tad James practitioner or a subsidiary of Tad James, this is an exercise that they typically include. And what you do is you create your goal. So in my practice, I work with a lot of business owners. We'll take their revenue target for the business, and then we're going to run it through the conditions of a well-formed outcome. Now, I want to point out that this technique is an intermediary technique. You should have some familiarity with NLP in order to do this effectively. If what I'm saying is new to you and you can't do this on your own, there is a training that I'm doing coming up in which I'm going to guide you through how to go ahead and create that well-formed outcome and then project it into the future. Okay, so if any of this is confusing or you're not totally clear about how to do it, I recommend you check out the link, should be down below you, or depending where you're seeing this, it'll be around the video somewhere. And then I will guide you through the process of how to do this for yourself. But what you do is you create a goal and you run it through the conditions of a well-formed goal. And I'm not going to go into those today, but you can find videos about well-formed outcomes here on YouTube or on Google, very simply. And once you have that, in particular, we're going to ask the question, what's the last thing that is going to happen that lets you know you've achieved that goal? What's the last thing that's going to happen that lets you know you've achieved that goal? So for example, if it's a revenue target, right? Maybe you have Square or you have PayPal or wherever you receive money, right? And you can see the total receipts for your business. That might be the last thing, right? If it's a fitness goal, maybe it's it's you on the pull-up bar having completed 20 pull-ups, right? What's the last thing that you're gonna see when last thing that lets you know you've achieved your goal? And then we're gonna take that representation, and if you're familiar with NLP, we're gonna adjust the submodalities to make it really compelling, really desirable, so that it draws you, so you feel drawn to it. And there's one more piece, in particular with regards to the submodalities, that's important here, and that's how real is it. So what you're going to do next is adjust the submodalities, so it's just as real, just as convincing to you as something you know is going to happen in the future. Now, this means you have elicited your timeline already. It means you're familiar with your timeline. And so you're gonna look at, let's say it's a revenue goal for the first quarter. I know that the end of the quarter is gonna happen. I have a representation, and I know with certainty that that will happen. I'm going to adjust the submodalities of my goal and place it into my timeline in the same submodalities and in the same location as that goal that I know is that I know it's going to happen. And you continue to adjust until it's really compelling and it feels really, really real to you. It feels certain to you. Now, when we do this in timeline, you typically do this above your timeline. So you'll float up above your timeline, carrying your representation of the goal with you. And then you'll drop it down into your timeline. Now, something really cool happens when you do this. When you allow the goal to drop down into your timeline and you're floating above it, and you look back to the present moment, what you'll actually start to see is all the moments from the present moment to the achievement of that goal start to reevaluate themselves. You'll notice things on your timeline shifting that will actually lead to the successful completion of that goal. So, sometimes, actually quite often, to be honest with you, quite often, when you go to do this exercise, certain things may come up. So for example, resistance may come up. You'd be surprised how many people actually have resistance to achieving their goals. And if you have resistance, there are a lot of NLP techniques that can help you clear resistance. But what's great about this, whether in doing the exercise, you become aware of resistance, or you become aware of any limiting beliefs or limiting decisions. Maybe you have bad habits that you know are going to get in your way. It's going to make it difficult for you to actually achieve that. This process will let you know exactly what you have to clear out in terms of your bad habits, your limiting decisions, your limiting beliefs, your resistance, to actually make the goal achievement effortless. And for me, a personal practice is to use this as a way to suss out any limiting beliefs, resistance, habits, etc. And now I know what I need to change in order to actually hit that goal. All right. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Again, this is more intermediate. If things like submodalities are unfamiliar to you, if well-formed outcome, if timeline, if these things are unfamiliar, then I invite you to come to the training. In fact, even if they are familiar, come to the training anyway. And what we're going to do together is create these goals, these well-formed outcomes. Then we're going to go through and adjust the qualities of it so that you start to feel drawn to that. And we're going to make it real and convincing in the same way that an Elon Musk or a Steve Jobs or a Kobe Bryant would look into the future and say, this is gonna happen. You can begin to do that for yourself and become aware of any of the issues that you need to transform in order to be able to achieve that. Go ahead and give the video a like, a comment, go ahead and hit the subscribe, and go ahead and register for the training.